In this lesson, we'll start drawing our building footprint and property line. Alright, so welcome to our course in creating a site plan in AutoCAD. So what we're going to do is we're going to tackle this residential project. It'll be a small residential project. So we need to design our site to include all the main things, any kind of infrastructure, easements, property lines. We definitely want to have our dimensions, but we want to have our building footprint, a few surrounding buildings. We want to know the center line of the street, sidewalks, driveways onto the site. So you're kind of getting an idea of all the things we're going to have to incorporate into this property or into this site plan. So let's get the party started by creating our property line. So I'm going to create a layer for that. So I'm going to go to my layer properties, and what we could do is you can use several different colors if you want to, but I'm going to keep my plan simple. I'm definitely going to split up and have different layers, but I'm going to keep most of my colors the same and most of the line types the same as well. So we'll go add a layer, and I'm going to call this one property line. And I'm going to make that my current layer, and again I'm going to keep all that the same. We'll get out of here. And now let's create that property line. I'm going to use a polyline. I'm going to make sure my ortho's on, and my property line or my lot is actually 56 feet in this direction by 140 feet in that direction. And it's, basically this rectangular shape. So we'll continue on with the same dimensions, and we'll close this out here. So my goal is to make this, especially since we're going to have surrounding buildings around, is I want to make this the obvious. It's obvious when you look at this that this is our property line, not only by the fact that we're going to call it out, but I want this to be a nice thick line. Now I can either adjust the line thickness, but I'm just going to offset and hatch this in. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to offset, and I'm only going to offset it 1 inch, and we're going to offset it outward, not inward. So I'm just going to place my mouse out here, and now we're going to hatch inside those two lines. We're going to use a solid line to get that accomplished. So now we know for sure, and it's going to be obvious once we start drawing a lot of our other thin lines, that hey, this is our property line, this is the site. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of my hatch command. But what we want to do now is we want to create our building footprint. So you can actually go in here and draw it yourself, but if you've already started working on your design and you already have a floor plan, maybe even a roof plan, you can use those, or you can even use the building footprint. Now, in this particular design, we're actually going to use the first floor plan. One, because it has the basic footprint of the building, but it also has windows and doors in place, so I have a better understanding, and anyone who's analyzing this site plan will have a better understanding of how this building relates to the site, how you can move in and out of this building, places you can go. You'll even get a good idea of views and things like that by the placement of the windows. So in our case, we're actually going to use the floor plan. But as I mentioned, you could use a roof plan, or you can even use, a basic building block footprint. So I went ahead and created a block of my first floor plan as I was working on this design. So I'm just going to bring that into my plan here. So I'm going to go to Insert. We're going to Insert Block. And right here is my block. So if I had this saved somewhere else, you could go to Browse and go to whatever folder you may place that. But mine's right here since I've worked on it recently. And I'm going to say OK, and we're going to place this on our site. Now, initially I didn't place it in its exact location, but we're going to do that now. We're going to make some adjustments. So according to, depending on where you live, there's some zoning rules. So you're going to have your building set back from the back of your property line here a certain amount of feet. And the same thing for the front, as well as the sides. So I know for sure that where my sides need to be placed by these cross sections of columns here. This is basically my carport area that's supported by 1, 2, 3 columns and also attached to this large porch area. So all I really need to do is grab this block that we just placed, and we're going to move it to where it lines up exactly with that property line. So I'm going to grab the edge of that circle, place it right there, and we've got the right orientation. So the distance here is correct, and the distance here is going to be correct. So our main focus now is going to make sure we get our distance here. So in order for you to find that out, you can look up any kind of zoning codes and you'll know the exact number, but we're going to kind of rough estimate this. But just keep in mind that it's something when you're creating your site plan. Dimensions on the side of the house, the setback on the front and back are very important, And if you're creating this and you are doing a site plan, you should have access to information that lets you know the code requirements for that. But we're going to keep it pretty simple, but I definitely want to mention it, and I definitely want us to be conscious of these things as we're working through this. Because after all, creating a site plan is more than just creating a bunch of lines and something simple. This has to tell a story about the site, and it definitely needs to be accurate. So right now we have our site in place with a nice bold property line here, and we also have the placement of this. So I think we're in good shape. I know that my front yard's a little bit smaller, and we definitely have plenty of space to meet our setback requirements for the front yard as well as the backyard. So in the next lesson, we're going to start to evolve this site plan, and we'll start adding elements like trees and fencing and other things to really finish out this site. So I'll see you in the next lesson.